So, you know how Asian parents have expectations for what their kids will be when they grow up? What did your parents think you were going to be when you grew up?
I don't think my parents expected much. My dad didn't expect any particular occupation. I think my mom expected me to be like a missionary or be a pastor of a church, which is very not so traditional.
Yeah, your family's not very traditional, I feel like, in that sense.
What about you?
Nurse.
I
feel like my mom probably secretly still wants me to be a nurse. Maybe. I think she just wants there to be a medical professional in the family. One of my cousins, she wants to be a doctor when she grows up. And so my mom was like, oh, it's good to have a doctor in the family. It's good to have someone that knows medicine in the family. Like, it's a very handy thing to have, I feel like, so.
That's because you're Filipino.
Yeah, right? And a lot of Filipinos are nurses. So, yeah, it's a stable job and you always need nurses. It's one of those jobs I feel like that it's not like you never need them, whereas in some other jobs,
it pays really well compared to other occupation probably in the Philippines or maybe have to be abroad and be a nurse to make money, right?
And I think the thing is, like, when you go abroad as a nurse, there's a demand for it because there's a shortage of nurses in a lot of other countries.
Yeah. So in today's episode, we want to talk about our expectation, for the job and occupation and career that each of the Asian parents typically put on. And today I will be representing Japanese side and I guess half Korean side. And my name is Elisha, and I am the Matcha side of the partner relationship we have. And
like I said today, like only today you're Japanese or Korean. No, I'm Filipino American. My name is Leah, and I am an ube lover. Ube is purple yam in Tagalog. So we named this podcast UbeMatcha because we are from different cultures and we love food. We love dessert. So we decided to name the podcast after those yummy things.
Yep. So going back to your story about being a nurse, your mom, did your mom ever vocalize that she wanted you to be something when you grew up?
I think probably just a occupation where you make a decent amount of money would be good for her. I think actually she wanted me to be a journalist, and I think maybe I displayed some interest in the fact that my strong suit at school was writing. And she thought that would be a good job for me. That's the only job I know that she was like, oh, I think you should be a journalist. But
I don't think you make a decent money being a journalist.
Well, I feel like she thought I would be like a TV anchor or something. You know what I mean? I think they probably make a decent amount of money, but I would be on the television doing the evening news or something.
That's different than writing. The script writers are behind the scenes.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, other than that, I feel like they didn't say anything else about what I should be when I grew up. Maybe it'd be cool if I was like a singer or something, because a lot of Filipinos are singers, but my mom never said, oh, become a singer. I just sang a lot of karaoke growing up because, Filipinos love to sing karaoke. So
what about your dad?
I don't think he had those occupation expectations. I feel like with my dad, it was just a lot of fun stuff that I don't know. I felt like he kind of just, one of the biggest things for him was enjoying life and just trying different things. So I think because of my dad, I played a lot of video games and played on the computer a lot. So my dad was more like that, but it's not like he was like, oh, you should do something with computers when you're older. You know what I mean? It was just more just try out different things and play with gadgets. My dad was just into buying random gadgets and just getting even just random video games at the store that were on discount. He would just buy it and then we would play it. So I don't know. He didn't have a specific expectation, but I feel like a big thing for him was having fun with your life. So I don't know. I mean, maybe now I think about it, my parents like aren't super difficult. Like my parents are like tiger parents. They're like, you need to become a lawyer or like a doctor and make a lot
which
of
is
money and
the
then
typical
pay for our
expectation.
retirement, or
Right,
something.
right. It's
Buy us a
usually-
house when you make a lot of money.
Yeah, your kids are usually the investment, right?
Yeah.
In Asian cultures, and in many ways, whether they're working in the field back in the time, the more kids you had, the more workers in the field, right?
Mhm.
Or today's time, it's more the lawyer or doctor who brings money. It's less hands, more just pure money. Bring it in, invest in the house, invest in this and that, right?
Mhm.
So I guess we both had parents who are not really conforming to this norm of Asian Americans struggling because of
Mm.
parents who expected certain work
Mhm.
career out of it. I think when I look at my relatives, there are some of the relatives that are under that pressure,
Mhm.
and they did become like lawyers.
Oh, okay. Their parents expected them to have
Right.
a very specific occupation
Mhm.
that would make them a lot of money.
Yeah, they would basically plan out the life that they'll be going to this school and that they'll become lawyer. And that's very common in Asian countries, and also that's somewhat common in some of the Asian American household, where the point of coming to US is to make it big.
Yeah.
So why become an artist, right? When
You're just gonna struggle more.
Yeah.
Like your parents already came here, so you didn't have to struggle. So
Right.
why are you putting yourself through that on purpose?
Yeah.
Type of thinking.
Yeah. So neither of us had that expectation. I wonder if the parents who aren't really forcing those down are the the baby boomer generation who went through that themselves, and later in their life that they don't necessarily want that like prescribed path for their children,
Mhm.
versus maybe some parents saw how successful the other families are because they did become doctor and lawyer,
Yeah.
and it comes with the prestige, right?
Prestige and just stability, because I feel like it wasn't stable. Maybe at least like in the Philippines, it's really hard to find stability with a lot of jobs, and I feel like there's no social security, or it's very little social security. So a lot of it was coming to a country where you could make a lot more and have a stable job that pays enough so you can live like a decent life. It's not like you're trying to become rich, but you just want to live a life where you feel comfortable at
Mhm.
least, right? So I think that was what my parents were more looking for. And I think for my mom being the oldest of 7 kids, she definitely felt a big responsibility, I feel like, to be the one that graduates and gets a good job and be a good example for her siblings. And I kind of wonder if that kind of maybe made her think that she doesn't want to put the same pressure on her kids, because she was under a lot of pressure from her own family.
Yeah.
But she does tell me, a lot of the advice she does give me is to be responsible about, like, when I get older, she's like, make sure you save for retirement and, you have your 401k. And she's already talking about like Social Security with me because I'm in my 30s, right? She's like, save money for when you're older and make sure you are thinking ahead, because I mean, my mom thought ahead too. So,
which is the difficult part of our millennial generation, who couldn't afford a house or still can't afford a house, and we have to pay forward for Social Security, but most likely when we retire, we're not going to get much out of Social Security.
yeah.
I think we're supporting the baby boomer generation
Mhm.
by us working and paying tax for it, and that's a completely different topic, but at the same time relevant, because this occupational pressure is also that your kid is gonna have to survive this market competition of making money so they can afford a house, right? Not just live in an apartment.
Mhm.
So for some people, pressure is really immense, where you have to make money, you have to invest in the
Mhm.
house, you have to invest in this and that. Make sure there's a wealth left when you retire.
Mhm.
But for some, I think my parents are more like we'll see where it goes. So they weren't like conservative with the wealth building, and
Oh, I
especially becoming
see.
pastor and
That's like a risky
it's very much,
undertaking.
in some country it is the way to make money, but like not in Japan.
Like in Korea, right?
Yeah.
Aren't there a lot of wealthy pastors or
Right.
mega churches?
Yeah, but in Japan that's not the case. Like becoming pastor of a church is sure a way to lose money
Oh, I
and
see.
lose your wealth.
Because very little Japanese are actually Christian, right?
Right. You need congregation who give offering to support the church and everything. But that's not the case in Japan. So I think going into it, my parents already knew that they're not going to have much.
But I feel like with your parents, right, didn't they come from money? It seems like they weren't poor. From
Right.
like when they were born into at least middle class or maybe wealthier.
Yeah, middle class, I would say. My dad may have been a little bit upper middle.
Yeah.
Depending on I don't know how it was like, but my grandparent was a schoolmaster of like 3 different schools.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure they had money. And
didn't he meet the emperor? Your grandfather? Yeah, he had like a meal with the emperor. I don't know if it was like lunch or dinner, right? So I mean, if you met the emperor, isn't that pretty like prestigious?
It's
or
at
high
least
up?
prestigious. I don't know if you made money in Japanese school systems because it's the public schools. So I don't know how much money you could be making, but definitely more prestigious. Yeah, I think school is definitely another prestigious thing to be like a schoolmaster. Maybe becoming a teacher is not so much high class, but I think if you're a schoolmaster, if you would be considered like
like if you're like
prestigious.
managing or like a director level, maybe that's what that's considered.
Yeah. I think I know back in the time, Japan would encourage you to become a teacher and government would waive your college tuitions. And that's how they produce a lot of teachers back in the boomer generation. So that's like right out of the World War II. We got to invest in education. Like, okay, we need more teachers. So while you could become a doctor or lawyer or other high paying job, like we need a system that pays for the farmers, that pays for the educators to subsidize with the tax so that there's resources in Japan. I think those days are over. And now the younger generations, like the Gen Z generations, are in an interesting spot where the parents are probably expecting less out of them, but society is maybe demanding more out of them because you have to be competitive. Of like I don't know if they can afford a house, right? They have to be super competitive. They want to survive in the market and keep up with the rate of the inflation, at least in the United States. So for the rest of them, I don't know, but it's like I don't know what expectation we would put on our kid because in one hand, we don't want them to be forced to choose like a lawyer or doctor as occupation. But if you just decide to be someone who like work part-time or something, you're not going to survive anymore.
Or if you just work on your passion, like in arts or liberal arts, right? You're not going to make that much money. So how do you fend for yourself, even if that's something that you really want to do or you feel like you're meant to do?
Yeah, I think in current times, I've started to see some people posting videos on TikTok about how it's been difficult for a lot of the like single people, especially with their kids, to survive because working part-time, even multiple jobs doesn't cut it. And having a career at least helps to have a stable full-time job.
Yeah.
But if you didn't build a career, then you will be stuck with the part-time job almost forever because it's almost impossible to start part-time and then get a full-time, even though you're able to do that. Out of college, like you struggle to get a job just like anyone else back in 2010.
Yeah,
right?
2010, right? The market crashed. That was a very difficult time. And for anyone who graduated, I feel like it was really hard to find a job, any full-time job. So, yeah, I think the thing with Asian parents too, or parents that are immigrants, I think more parents that are immigrants is you don't really understand how the school system works. So, you would just learn, I think as a parent, like, oh, sign up for FAFSA, right? That's like how you the government, like, kind of helps you out to go to college and everything. And then you get loans. Like, that's what's, understood that you get. So, my parents got me a loan. I paid the loan myself. So I paid all the loans back myself. But, maybe there were other ways to do it, but that's kind of the primary way. They thought, oh, that's how you pay for school. You have to get loans to pay for it, right?
Yeah, it's common in Japan too, where you pretty much be getting loan and you have to pay that back. So that's another difficulty with a lot of people without career paying for tuition, because like you had like what, 40,000 in your time,
30,000.
30,000.
Yeah,
Now
worth
it's
of
probably
loans.
like what, 80,000
Yeah.
or more, right? That you have to pay back because of inflation, because of demand and competition. So who knows, like the younger generation, like Gen Zs, when by the time they get into college, they might be paying like $100,000 in loan. So to pay that back, you have to get a job that pays a lot. So more and more pressure to get a full-time job.
That's
right?
true. But I also think there's so many more possibilities these days. If you're willing to work hard, there are so many new possibilities to make money, I think, in the economy. Like, I mean, you could do side gigs, not to say that you make a lot of money doing Uber or Lyft, but you could also have like a side hustle too, right? Where you do some work online. And I feel like the internet's kind of enabled a lot of jobs that we haven't had before, right? Like I do social media marketing. That's my business. This job did not exist. I don't even know, maybe like 10, 15 years ago, it probably didn't even exist yet, right? Because we didn't have apps or like social media platforms, really. They were very underdeveloped. Maybe they were just brand new. So people didn't use them very much. And it's not like we were using them to make money or like market things really yet, right? So I feel like because of the internet, though, like millennials and Gen Z have a lot more opportunities to make money, if they leverage the technology that's out there.
They can also learn more easily with the Udemy, Skillshare. I wish those things existed back in the time.
Yeah, when we were, how many years? Like 15 years ago, I guess that was now.
Because I would just be reading books to learn things, right? Like a programming and things like that. Now you can just watch someone, click around the UI and, you learn the principles. And it's not that you can become an expert just by watching video, because you still need to practice it.
You need to,
There's no magic secret that will just, give you a lot of traffic. Like everything plays together with your experience and wisdom, knowledge. But yeah, it's true. It's so much easier to pick up the skill, apply it, and try to at least be freelance person, try to get your own client. But I think at the same time, that is requiring more wider skill set and being able to adapt to the market more than before.
Yeah.
Because in the past, you can just go to school, pick your major, and you're onto the right path. You just have to be smart. But today, if you want to pick up those skills, like you have to do your research on like, okay, which course should I buy? Okay, I bought it. I learned it. Well, now what? Like I need to find my client. So that's a skill that you have to get to market yourself. And then you have to learn how to write the contract. You have to learn how to charge client. You have to learn how to do your own tax. It creates a lot of more pressure to know how to run your business, which I guess the baby boomers of Asian immigrant who migrated to US had to figure out, like opening.
Well, I think they probably understand more like running a restaurant or starting a restaurant or running like a brick and mortar store. Like I think that makes more sense to them because, but it makes sense to them. But I feel like they started a lot of those things, like started a store restaurant more out of necessity and less of a passion because they just had to somehow get their kids through school. Like that was their goal, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of like the older generation still doesn't understand, or maybe they're beginning to understand that like you can make money online. Like there are jobs that like basically just live in the digital world, right? And you can work and you can potentially make a lot of money if you know how to use it. But then that's not really easy to explain. And there's still that element of well, you have to be right place, right time, and know what works, in the, during that time, and still like look out for it. And you still have to put in the work. I think ultimately you still have to put in the work, right? It's not, but it's true. It's not just following one path, right? Like you graduate high school, go to college, you get a job out of college. That's not where you can achieve a lot of stability these days. Or like you maybe can live a decent life, but I don't know, maybe you might not be able to afford a house depending on your major.
Yeah,
or
still not gonna afford a house.
Right. Or
unless you're in a tech field. Then maybe, even then you need 2 tech field people living together to afford a house today.
2 people that work in the tech industry, right?
Because you're competing against the other tech people buying a house. So like you need 2 of them to afford it. Yeah. Today,
and tech is pretty new, I think, as a field, if you think about it, because I feel like maybe the older generation doesn't really know that you can make a lot of money in tech. Like maybe not as much as a surgeon, maybe, but close you can make depending on like what kind of job you get in tech, right? There's a lot of money. Like I feel like my salary full time was like really good already. Like I could live like off of that. Even if I didn't get raises.
You also don't need to pay back like $300,000 loan to school. You don't have to study for additional 8 years. You can start to make money right away.
Yeah. But I think they're starting to understand now. Like it's seen as more prestigious. Like, okay, like you are a software engineer, developer, or like a manager, like you move up, then that's more, okay, that seems like a stable, like a good career choice because you'll make money and be able to feed and house and clothe your family and all that.
That you didn't used to be the case in the past. And when I was choosing my own career, because my parents didn't force me into anything, I was naturally thinking computer because I was already interested in the subject of computer. I was making websites, but I chose business major at University of Washington because I thought that would be a better skill to have and be able to apply to anywhere. And I thought I would just hire software engineers to do the work.
Okay, so you will like manage the business side and you'll just get like the skilled developers to do the work.
Turns out it's the other way around, where the software engineers who write the code, and maybe not like a computer scientist, because I think that's just an academic field, but it's the coders who build the next, the tech.com, not .com, the like web 2.0 boom and start the business, and they don't know what they're doing. They just know how to build a product, and then the investor is going to come and help with the business side of it, right? So I ended up becoming a software engineer. And after I graduated, I started more as a business analyst, but I just ended up becoming software engineer because there was so much demand
for that, to build websites, right?
So I was like, okay, I guess I'll help because I already know how to do it. And I didn't think that's going to be my main thing, but it ended up being like such a huge demand year over year that we start to make money for a company I work for, Fresh Consulting, that you build web applications, you make like millions in revenue. So that's what we start to focus on. And I start to lead more of those projects. I think it also helped that, not that it helped that I majored in business, but I think the mindset of combining the business and the product development helped me to become like a lead person and now the director, because you don't just code, right? You work with the client, you think about solution, you become more critical, and you can't just be like a nerd nerding out about tech. Like you have to speak the language of customers and the client.
Yeah, I think you have to kind of understand what you're guiding or instructing your team to do in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some people that maybe just get it, but I think a lot of times you actually have to do the work before you can delegate it, right?
So yeah, for me, I don't think there was much connection between what my parents taught me or had expectation.
What do your parents think about your job?
I guess I never asked.
Yeah.
Maybe that's an Asian thing too.
You don't talk to each other.
You don't know what your parents are thinking. Like it's a common thing to say that your parents, especially your dad, would
Yeah.
never say you did a good job, especially to a son, right?
Mm.
Until they're so old that like no, they don't care
Yeah.
when they're so old. But I think my dad did like praise a little bit. He wasn't like a
Oh.
stone person, but it's more
He did praise you sometimes.
sometimes, but
Yeah.
it's not like a common thing. Whereas in US, I
Mm.
think the culture is more like, oh, you praise for every little thing and
Yeah.
encourage
Yeah.
them. But yeah, I think I had somewhat traditional dad who,
Mm.
yeah, it's like, well, yeah, I'll approve you if you did good. And maybe if my dad was still alive, he'll think like I did a good job,
Yeah.
right, in my career now. But he passed away when I'm still more like a junior person
Oh, yeah. You weren't
working
at
up my
this
way.
level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think he was proud that I had anything, like any job in US.
He had low expectations
Yeah.
for you. No, I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
because he wasn't sure. Like he just sent me to US. And like, good
Yeah,
luck.
we'll see. Yeah.
He's seen a case where things failed for other kids
Mhm.
who we mentioned this before, who had difficulty adapting to the US culture.
Mhm.
And yeah, job market too. Like, how do you navigate on your own? Because my parents had no idea
Yeah.
how to guide me. So I would just do my own research. And that probably helped the fact that I applied for FAFSA. My parents didn't know anything about it. So I didn't have to pay any tuition
Mhm.
or pay back any loan. And I looked up every time those school counselors or advisors who come to our school and teach us about like, here's a website that you can go and look up like the job occupation and the database of it, and then the salary you can expect. I don't know if you did pay attention to that.
I don't even
You
remember if
probably
I
didn't.
went to
Yeah,
any
we
of
went to the same
those
school.
like sites. Yeah, to check.
We went to the same school, and there was like assembly where like they would be doing presentation about it. So I'll just go to the website at home and I'll look up all the jobs and like, oh, like looks like if I have information architecture, I will make a lot of money with
Mhm.
that. And I thought I'll be super happy if I make like 60K or something. And now it's like, well,
Mhm.
yeah, you can't survive with the 60K.
Yeah, you can't survive without some inflation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why I started to focus my mind on like, okay, I need to go into the tech field.
Mm.
So at least a work company should be a tech company at least. Then I ended up applying for a consulting company because it was so hard to find any job. I applied,
Yeah, you just have to find a job.
yeah, apply
Mhm.
for many other tech companies. I didn't get anything.
Yeah.
But this personal introduction to this consulting company that I work for now ended up becoming the way I got the full-time job,
Mhm.
luckily, out of college. Story looks a little bit different for you because you had to like kind of go different pathways, including getting certifications at Bellevue College
Yeah.
for
I
writing.
mean, I worked part-time like in college. I think a lot of Americans do that. I don't know if they do that in
I think they do. Yeah.
Japan. In the
Yeah,
Philippines,
Japan,
it's not
yeah.
very common to work part-time
Oh,
as
really?
a kid. It's discouraged, I think, by a lot of parents because they'd rather their kids focus on school. They don't want them to get
Oh.
distracted by starting to make money.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's the
yeah,
thinking.
yeah.
If they start to make money, then they don't want to go to school anymore because they just want to work
Yeah.
and just make money because it's easy. Like you just started working, you make money. I don't know if I agree or disagree with that. I think there are good and bad aspects of that. But in general, if you're traditional, because the Philippines is conservative, they don't really encourage working during school. But in the US, it's very common to work part-time,
Mhm.
right? So I worked at Sanrio, the Hello Kitty store. And that was fun. It was a really fun experience. I feel like I had a lot of fairly like normal, like American jobs or jobs that you do here before you
worked
graduate.
at buffet too, right?
Buffet. I worked at a bowling alley.
A bowling alley,
Yeah, I was
okay.
a server at a bowling alley, but I had to take orders and serve at a bowling alley. I got that through a friend actually because she worked there for a long time and her brother worked in the casino there. So it's funny. I feel like a lot of the jobs I got in my life were through connections or
Mhm.
referrals. So if you're having a hard time finding a job, you need to look in your own
It's
network.
pretty
It's
common
not
in
easy.
US that you
Mhm.
have to work through your connection. Yeah.
Yeah, like if you have a network of people and they can refer you, that's a lot easier than cold applying for jobs. I've never gotten a job cold
really
applying.
Hard. It's really
like
hard.
just being a resume and a sea of resumes. I've never gotten a job like that. So I also did work at the University of Washington as a file assistant. I would file patient documents. So like anything that was printed out from their visit, I would have to file away in a document. That's probably, now that I think about it, probably more digitized now. I don't know if they need that kind of job anymore.
Probably not. It's probably all digital,
like computer,
online
right?
computer. Yeah. How tech has made a lot of money, right? Replacing those menial jobs. But
so I did a little bit of that. So I did a mix of jobs. Like I had like normal like college kid part-time jobs, and then I was assistant. And then Amazon I got through a friend. So a friend that I was volunteering with at an anime convention, because I used to volunteer at an anime convention, used to cosplay, do all that fun stuff. And then that's actually good too. It's a good thing if you're trying to find a job or you're trying to build a community or networking for the future. Like if you're in college and you want to kind of branch out and meet more people, volunteering is really good. I mean, now I think about it, that was a way how I got into a contract job at Amazon. So I worked at Amazon Instant Video. And I got the job really because of my friend's connection, because he worked there full time and he basically just got me through the door. I just had to sign up with the contracting company, but he was already putting in the word for me. So you really need someone who is a strong advocate for you, like someone who's close to you. A lot of times will just kind of help push you through the process a lot easier. And I feel like, you know, I didn't have like that much experience. So it was really just like, you know, they were like just trusting, like my friend would like, you know, have a good recommendation. I mean, it panned out. I got a lot of extra duties because, you know, I knew how to write, like I did technical writing. So I did things like write the SOP, the standard operating procedures manual of the processes in our team. And I got that because like I knew how to write. I did some technical writing, and I got and I went to evening classes when I worked at Amazon so I can get certified in technical writing too. So
I think
let's do some extra
big companies have those focus roles where like the skill of writing comes really like useful and you can focus on it. I think the world I lived in, like a really small startup with starting with like 5 people, you have to do everything. Like I did print design, website design, market analysis, and I was like, I'm not even expert at these things, but I have to just do. Whereas the big companies can afford like a certified people skills because they would have enough budget to hire someone who just focus on it.
Yeah.
To be. So yeah, that's another thing to consider when you're looking for work. It is the role that you get is also depending on the company that can afford or not afford for. Like if you're generalist, maybe you're better off smaller business. But if you're really focused, really good at one thing, you need to find a company that can afford that one role. Out of many positions they have. Yeah. And then what happened after Microsoft?
I feel like it'd be a really interesting episode to go into my job because I've basically watched videos. I watched like TV shows and movies.
At the Amazon,
that's part of my job. Yeah. So I feel like we could probably have an episode where we talk about our job specifically. I guess what we could talk about, because some of it is probably confidential.
Yeah.
But I went to
probably gone.
And some are probably gone. Yeah, I think they actually probably automated a lot of my job at Amazon. Yeah.
Again, another tech coming in, just swooping up the manual work.
Right. Yeah. Now they probably just have AI doing like a lot of the captions or naming the actors by like image, like face recognition.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's all automated now.
The job is automated. But I ended up at Microsoft after that. And I do remember that my parents, like, they're like, oh, that's like a name that we know. And that's like a product that like we use. So they're like, oh, that's cool. Like they did actually like that I worked at Microsoft. It's not like they said, oh yeah, we're so proud of you. Because I feel like Asian parents never say like,
right. They don't ever say
we're so proud of you. I mean, maybe unless you become like the top doctor, they will finally say
even the software engineers at Google, like I see them struggle getting approval from their parents like, based on
if even they can't get approval now.
I think I watched the interview by Jimmy Wang, who went to Google,
Uh-huh.
and then I think he was doing interview with being
What was he
interviewed
doing
at
at Google? Is he a director?
talking
Or?
about the comedy, Jimmy.
Oh, Jimmy O
Yeah,
Yang.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I think
yeah.
he was talking about the comedy show, the Silicon Valley,
Mhm.
and the students had chance to ask him questions, and then even those Asian American students who still seem to be like under pressure by parents, even though you made it to the
Yeah.
Google software engineering team, like it's still not good enough.
Yeah, you could always do better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Asian parents, I feel like to compare their kids to other
Yeah.
kids too, or their friends in their circle,
Yeah.
right? They're like, well, blah, blah has this job. Blah, blah's a doctor. What
Yeah.
are you doing? You know?
Yeah.
So it's always like a competition, I feel like. So that I feel like, yeah, that can be really, even my cousin told me that his mom and my mom would like compare us, but like they would say really like nice things about us, like never to our face, but to each other they would, because they wanted to kind of show off like how well like their kid is doing, like so they could compare it with my cousin.
I think that applied to me too, right? I think your mom talked about me.
Oh, she did?
Yeah, I think you told me like calling on the phone call with other people. Like, oh yeah, like Leah's like boyfriend makes money or something.
I don't know. She probably
you
did.
told me that.
Oh,
yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe she did. I don't exactly know. It'd probably be interesting to ask my uncles and aunts what they say. I mean, I don't really like that. I don't like pitting family against each other. And I think people are at different stages of their life, right? So it's like, I feel like it doesn't make sense to compare people's journeys to each other.
Right. Also, it's almost how there is a part of how you live and how you end your life. And do you want to have a lot of money that the government's going to take away, with the tax, or do you want to have, last moments surrounded by family members and friends who really love you, right? So there is a part where, having money is going to help you get a house and it's going to help you get out of poverty. But if you focus too much on it, you could become lonely at the end.
Then you could just have nothing right at the end too. And then what did you work so hard for?
Yeah.
But I mean, I do understand, like, your parents just want you to be good. Like, so I think Asian parents tend to want to push their kids. Like, I feel like even as a kid growing up, like with homework, like my mom had really high expectations. Like if we had like one wrong answer, she'd get mad, and I feel like that's probably the case with a lot of Asian parents. Well, I don't know about your parents. Maybe they didn't do that.
Care.
But yeah, my mom she had very high expectations for our grades too, like she wouldn't really like it if we got like a B or a C, but she probably wasn't maybe as particular about it compared to some other Asian parents maybe, but she still didn't like it if we got anything like lower than an A, right? So like school was always like the primary focus, I felt like, growing up. And I feel like they think that that's like how you'll be able to make it in life. Get good grades and get into a good college and then have a good life.
Yeah. What would we recommend to Gen Zs and the younger generation that will come after Gen Z? Because the market is going to change. What made sense back in the time or what makes sense today is completely going to be irrelevant. Like a lot of jobs being automated and tech kind of taking over some of the old jobs and hopefully generating new jobs out of it and creating like an economy of creators where you can be anywhere you want to be and work. Especially if you are in, let's say, Philippines, you are going to make a lot of money just creating Udemy course compared to getting any job, right? In local economy.
It's true.
So for some countries, for some people in economic status have a lot of opportunity, but if you live in US, it's almost working against you because becoming Udemy course creator in US is not going to make you rich.
Because the cost of living here is much higher, right?
Completely different, right? So what we if I were to give an advice, I think if you are growing up today, want to become like YouTuber or TikToker, that's either you capitalize on it today in your age, or you should forget about it like 10 years from now, because those platforms not going to give you money.
Yeah, it's probably going to fall and something else is going to rise like in its place, right?
So for me, yeah, like go through school, enjoy your time, but definitely pick up the skills along the way, be adaptive, tune into the market, like as if you're going to be thrown into job market tomorrow.
Yeah.
That you are somewhat ready to tackle it. Because there is a skill development in just going through the school homework, school tests. Those are important to build up your fundamentals that then they can apply to when they grow up older, and whatever market kind of throw at you, you can adapt to it. But you also need to realize that traditional path that people have paved is no longer lucrative. Like you're not going to make as much money doing the same thing. Like being a YouTuber today is much harder than being a YouTuber 10 years ago making money, right? But I think kids looking at YouTube, TikTok, they think like, oh, I want to become those people. Just like I want to become a celebrity that I see in the TV, right? That's our generation, right? They are going to go through the same thing where they think they're going to be the YouTuber, TikToker. But
be an influencer.
But that's probably not going to make money. But some of the principles apply where understanding the market need, being able to create like content or product or something, whether it's a digital or physical, you have to like just be willing to dive deep in getting into the creation and not just consuming stuff. I don't know. Would you add different advice?
So for me, like I think there are a few different things. I think if you just want a stable job and you just want your job to be somewhere you work and make money, but you want it to be stable so you can just live, like you just want to pursue your hobbies and take your mind off of stuff when you're not at work, then I would pick a job or select a job that is future proof. Because there are jobs that you will always need, like no matter what. Like I know there's a big fear of like AI and like emerging tech taking over roles, but I feel like we'll most likely always need doctors,
nurses,
and like I feel like if you want stability, those jobs are still very good. Like if you want to separate your personal life from your work life and you just want to make a decent amount of money and like never feel like you're going to be fired, because I think that is the thing though with tech, you can make a lot of money, but on the other side, like you're very much more easily replaceable too, like in tech, I think that's the reality of it.
Yeah.
So, but if you have a very specific skill set, like when nursing, like you have to actually go to school for it. And, you need to actually know how to administer medication and do all of that.
You have to be certified. You have to be passing the exam.
Yeah.
Those you can't just decide to be.
And other people's lives depend on it, right? So I think anything in medicine, like people's lives actually depend on it. And like tech, I think sometimes people take themselves way too seriously. They're like, oh, we're changing the world. And I'm like, you maybe depending, but honestly, like if this like product doesn't launch today, no one's gonna die. Like I think you're okay. And I think there's a lot of people in tech that just take themselves way too seriously compared to like doctors. If you don't do the surgery right, someone could die, right? So, but that is one thing. If you just want a job where you can separate it from your personal life and live a good life and just do all the fun stuff outside, go to a job that's future proof.
I think many Filipinos took that path, right?
Yeah. And it's like, it's safe, right? And maybe it's not your passion. For a lot of Filipinos, maybe it's not their passion, but at least they're able to, they don't have to worry every day, am I going to have a job or not? Right. And then they can like feed and clothe and house their family. So
they can focus on the family instead.
Yeah. And I think that's also a very like noble thing. Now, if you want to go for a career that you really love, I think you're going to have to, one, have a growth mindset where like you have to always be learning and you have to be open to feedback. And doing new things. You can't just keep doing the same old thing, even with like coding, right? Because coding changes, right? There are new languages, right, that come out all the time. And if you're just stuck on I don't know, like JavaScript or whatever. Like, they're not going to use that
It's still
forever.
JavaScript, but,
Okay,
but then there's a
JavaScript.
TypeScript.
Oh, okay,
And then
yeah.
there's like the new framework and stack
Right.
that old things still work.
Yeah.
But in the job market, companies always want the new.
They always want
New
something
thing.
new, right?
Yeah.
So you have to constantly be evolving what your skill set, and you have to be resourceful too. Like, you have to kind of think outside the box when it comes to solving, problems. And if you want to make a career for yourself, or you want to like work for yourself, then you have to be open to just doing a lot of things, like doing, quote unquote, the things you don't want to do in the beginning too. I think a lot of times people just want to do the fun stuff. Now they're like, I just want to make videos and I just want to record myself and make a lot of money, where it's like, yeah, but you need to know how to do like the sales part of it. And then you have to know like there's maybe some technical stuff that you need to know. And that requires you to actually like learn and maybe that comes before you doing the fun stuff. It's not just all fun stuff, but I also feel like with social media in many ways, or with just like how people can like portray their lives in a way that's like, this is what I do on a daily basis. And it's like, well, that's probably like an easy day for them, or probably like a day that's like idealized for them. And that's probably not every day.
Right.
Like, they're probably doing a lot of stuff that's like really boring.
Yep.
Or maybe there's a lot of struggling, but they're not going to show that. Right. So I think it's important, if you're a younger generation, to know that the day in a life of like, I don't know, like a software engineer, or like a social media manager that they show, right, is not really like the real thing. A lot of times it is a curated, edited version of their life.
I don't think I've met software engineers who are like, oh, my life is perfect and good. Like, there's always something that's to complain about.
Yeah. And if you want to transcend past the just making this a job, then you really have to learn a lot of things. You just have to do a lot of things. I feel like that's the most important thing.
Also, if you follow the trend that's been established ahead of you and you come into the market late, you're going to struggle. I think at University of Washington last year or two, there were like 6,000 applicants to computer science, and they would only accept 500 because they don't have the capacity to accept 6,000.
Yeah.
And the chances of you getting is much smaller. Then previously, it might only be like 1,000 applicants.
Like, there have been less applicants in past years. And if you think about it, there are a lot more people in the world. So there's just a lot more people you have to compete with.
And the hype and trend and like, oh yeah, everyone wants to go to the, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, right? When that wasn't a thing before. So just following the trend is going to hurt you, because you're not going to make it in the competition.
Yeah, just because something is a big name, it also doesn't make it like the end all be all thing too. You can make a good life without working for like household names, and maybe sometimes it's just hype, or the environment could be depressing or difficult, just because it looks like it's prestigious. It doesn't necessarily mean that's like the best thing in life. Right.
I wish there were more time for younger generation to experiment. Like, if you're interested in content creation, like, you should do it now. You should do it when you're younger. Like, I think that is actually a really good, that's really good life advice, because when you're older and you have to concentrate on work, you're going to be tired just working. You're not going to have energy to be creative and just to try things that might not go anywhere or fail. And I think when you're a kid, there's a lot more room. Yeah. Or if you want to be a software engineer, just buy a course on Udemy for $10, Skillshare. Just learn and not wait till you get to college. And, like, learn it the proper way or something, because you're not going to get in. Like, you have to be the smartest kids in the college to even be admitted. It's like you already have to have some things under your belt, like some accomplishments or achievements, or just a raw IQ. I think if you don't have accomplishment, it has to be that you aced the math. Like, you have to get a 4.0 in college math, right? Like, because otherwise, there's no. What makes you stand out? What makes you stand out? GPAs, people. Because they're not going to look at your personal experience unless there is a way to express that. Yeah. And I didn't go to the computer science. I went to business, but I'm a software engineer now. So there are ways to get in. That's a good part of it. But my generation maybe had it a little bit easier. versus the current generation. It's harder to just get in. So
you have to be open to the path that leads you to your goal.
mhm.
So it's not going to be just one path. Or if you're having trouble with like the quote unquote, like the main way of how everyone else is doing it, you have to look at alternative ways to get to your goal. So
yeah, maybe we should have a specific episode on going deeper if anybody's interested in maybe preparing next generation for the job market, or it could be about how to help the millennial generation like us to get to the alternative job, especially if you're struggling or if you want to change your career. Let me know if you're interested in the comment section. We can talk about it a lot. And we have episodes coming out every single week like this. And for the shorts on YouTube or the TikTok videos, we release it every single day. So make sure to subscribe and also hit the bell so you get notified. And otherwise, you don't get notifications when we release a new episode. But yeah, until next time. Bye.